everybody, and welcome to our next Line of Duty review. And hi, Chris Persia. We're a bit later because I've had family rounds. That's why you made it on time.
Yeah. Yeah, and half seven in seems like a pretty solid um seems like a pretty solid time for these reviews, so we could be here that my mind go on for all so that
Yeah,
everybody is
in the
settled
comments
in.
afterwards, if you want to tell us that this works better, because we've done this a few times because of me, because of I didn't want to be late. But if it works better for people in the chat, let us know, and we'll happily think about doing this as like a usual slot time.
Yeah, and all the usual all the usual uh, um all the usual key also in chat apart from a few, but it's probably is probably can of him having us together.
And he likes to make an
And
entrance on Matthew.
yeah,
A few people said 7:30 works, so yeah, if that works for people better, it's
yeah,
it's not an issue for us to start at this time if you want that.
yeah. So so just briefly before we get into before we get into the episode properly, shall we where you're in a show thoughts an episode, because obviously you've probably seen this episode 100 times.
Not that much.
Yeah.
I've seen Now Line of Duty a few times, all the way few. I can't speak. Folks, my words are going to probably be a little bit not brilliant tonight. So bear with me on that front.
Yeah.
No, but I remember really, obviously, this episode is dealing with the fallout in a lot of different ways. And as I've sort of said last week, this storyline with Steve that now we're starting to get into is one of my favourites. So there's a lot I love about this episode. I really like the reactions that you see with Kate and Hastings. And I think their reactions sort of solidified. I feel that I think a lot of the fandom has, and something I really love about this show is that
Yeah.
them three are a family unit, and I think you really see that in this episode. That Hastings is the dad. He's sort of the grumpy dad who loves his kids, but he could like wring their necks. That sort of dad. You've got
Yeah.
Steve, who sort of usually causes most of the issues, but they love him for it. And then you've got Kate, who sort of has to show a bit more responsibility. And it's nice, like we were saying with the sort of bickering in the previous episodes, it's nice to see how much she actually does really care for Steve. And I
Yeah.
think I forgot how good actually Nick was, the actor in this, the husband, because you really see what Roz is doing to him and the
But
sort of the effects of the lying and the sneaking around on him.
um ha- he him as a character as a bit stupid to the it's like because he's just cause he's just basically like a sponge. He basically he soaks up all the shit from us
No, but
repeatedly.
yeah, he's all the fallout is really on him, and it's sort of obviously you still this episode. It's like you're trying to work out how much did he have to do with what happened with Steve, and that is sort of they're working out at the same time. But I really think
Yeah.
you sort of really see into the marriage of Roz and Nick, and the sort of the treatment of him.
Yeah.
And this is what I say, like Line of Duty, they really don't shy away from showing the flaws in their characters.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you sort of, in the same breath, you understand a bit, I think, in this episode where Roz is coming from with him, with a few of the dialogue choices she has. So, like I said, I quite
Yeah.
like this because there's a lot of character work for nearly everybody. I think who's got a good enough screen time here, and it does sort of have a few more overall plot things that you know are gonna work later on. So I really like this episode.
Yeah. Uh,
What did you think when you first watched it?
I think it's, I think it actually starts off pretty well because you get Rosen. I can, I, are having an other arg, um, um, argument, but this one's a bit more this one's a bit more intense, but like as well, Ozzy sort of a sarcastic sort of make of it can make me laugh. Laugh because I wasn't expecting that because it's almost still like a sort of childish thing to do basically, and she's an experienced police officer. So that kind of made me so that kind of made me laugh though.
Yeah, no, and you, like I said, I think there's a lot going on. So, like you said, obviously, you do start with he's just run out, isn't he? He's panicking because he knows Steve is at the bottom of the stairs,
Yeah.
and you can just see the sheer panic with the actor here. I don't know his name, which is bad, but I forgot how good he was until I watched this episode. So they meet up, and Roz even you can see, hi Joker. With Roz though, even she you can see is like, is Steve okay? And it's not because she cares; it's because she knows if there's now a dead AC-12 officer, that's just gonna make things even more complicated.
Yeah.
And you can sort of almost see how quick her brain's going in this moment, can't you?
Mm-hmm.
And how she's trying to process everything and trying to think, right, this has happened, and he's just flapping, isn't he, everywhere?
I, yeah.
But he does bring up the phone calls, so he sort of once he calms down a bit, doesn't he? He goes, well,
Mm-hmm.
he mentioned these phone calls, and it sort of is building up this image of him just not trusting her, which I think is quite well done throughout the episode.
Yeah. Yeah, and what he asks her about the about the phone call and stuff, them all sort of happy and sort of say, I got it, yes.
Yeah, she sort of gets, I say nasty, I think you're starting to see in this episode
Mm,
the slightly nastiness, because before it's sort of been like begrudgingly, oh god, you've sort of got me. I don't know what I'd describe it as before. It didn't come nasty before, I don't think.
yeah.
But like I said, with the mimicking of the voice,
Yeah, that
and then
was, yeah, that was actually cool. I mean, who's not made me or cute, to be fair.
yeah, and Roz is up to this point as well has been quite a dry character, hasn't she? So I think it it gives her a
Yeah.
nice bit of personality, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
And then, and you can sort of see how angry she is. Hi, Matthew, we were saying you'd be here. And she basically tells him, you're going to go back, you're going to say this.
Yeah.
And she's very much instructing him like you would a child to sort of be very point, this is what you're going to do.
Yeah.
So because this is what I like about Line of Duty as well. You can tell this is just after Steve has gone down the stairs, so Hastings arrives on the scene.
Yeah. Uh, um. So I keep basically it basically it says to Amy, you go and make the you go and listen. You you go and listen. And like Engelman for Engelman for the full open of you Hastings was with them. You,
Yeah, and I think you can see this has got to him that Steve's got hurt,
mm-hmm.
and this is really good acting of Adrian. Because I sort of said to you when we were chatting like in Messenger, I was like, he has this air of almost like an angry bear in the fact that one of his kids have been, like one of his cubs has been hurt because he is almost growling, isn't he, at people?
Mm-hmm.
And he's sort of very like, I don't care. Steve's hurt. It's like I'm gonna when he's talking about the Nick, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he does. An uneducated child. That is a good description, Sadako, of how she treats Nick. And he sort of just nods and is like, okay. Like he doesn't really argue at this point a lot back with her.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then we do have obviously Nick then gets his interview, his sort of first proper formal interview with Hastings and AC-12.
Yeah, and yeah, and you get properly adjust to the it character for the first time because like he because he's like the manual oil ex office.
Well, yeah, we sort of seen him looking at the phone, wasn't he, and to think to call, and now
Yeah.
I think you see why now because Likewell presents himself quite well, I would argue, as the lawyer. He's sort of very quick. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't really back down, even when Hastings, like I said, he's in full protective bear mode, and he is not
Yeah.
being. If he's grumpy before, he's proper grumpy now because of Steve, and he's sort of
Mm-hmm.
calm, isn't he? He doesn't really get. And I think he looks so calm because Nick is becoming like a wreck next to him, and he's sort of like nervous. You can see. So Lakewell just looks even more sort of calm and collected.
But to be honest, but to be honest, his how he doing? I'll probably chat to you after the Jerry. Sam, if you're a little bit out. So yeah, I think as well, but I think as well because of the, I think as well because of the I guess of it's it's kinda hammer it's kinda hammer is comfort, and so it's even more nervous each time the other figure has happened
Yeah,
because Ozzy's been in because he's been instructed by Oz repeated to stick to the story that I gave during my Austin. I figure so he's got a whole lot of pressure and it's falling down and top of him.
yeah. So Lakewell is very much pushing, which is what Roz sort of said to Nick, but Lakewell's now sort of pushing it a lot. That it was an accident. Like Steve fell down the stairs
Yeah.
by accident, and Hastings is like, you want me to believe that my fella fell
Yeah.
down 3 flights of stairs by himself. And that's
Yeah.
what I like about Hastings. He's very cagey in this. But then now we see a bit of Jamie. Obviously, he got introduced last episode. He looked quite slick and quite good with the girl. But when he's actually in the interview room,
Yeah,
he's
Ben,
not as slick, is he?
yeah, Ben, yeah, Ben, he's in it, and I think he sort of forgets to change the image. He's over each time he's asked to change it over. He's always sort of hesitating and trying to
Well,
appeal
it's
to
like
himself.
obviously Hastings is doing the talking, the bang 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 points, and he needs to have
Yeah,
the sort of here's this bit of evidence, here's this photo, and Jamie's just fumbling and taking his time, and
yeah,
I think it's more that made me laugh because the look Hastings gives is
yeah.
a proper like I don't have time to have a go at you, just like do what you need to do your job.
Yeah, it's all yeah, almost it's almost it's almost like I'm saying but by the way I've got a shit officer. I can't wait I can't wait. Oh, I get my usual impact without actually saying
Yeah, it's all in the look,
that.
isn't it? And Adrian's very good at those.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they do ask about Nick about the car, which has been
Mm-hmm.
brought up before, and he sort of he sort of can't explain it, and it's sort of the lawyer very quickly is like, right, let's change the
Yeah,
subject because Nick actually does have an alibi,
yeah,
which is he sort of gets his phone out, doesn't he? And he's like, oh, I'll have a look. And he was doing a business thing that night, so he actually has got a pretty solid alibi.
yeah,
So that's sort of that scene. So it's I think it's more to introduce Jimmy, that scene, isn't it? And like I said, it's sort of the little bits of Jamie. I think it's for that as well. And like I said, just to show the state of Hastings that we sort of saw at the beginning, and
yeah,
now we're just seeing he's got no patience because. And now this is a scene I did like, and I sort of said about this at the beginning: is Kate does come to the hospital next.
um, like, but he's at risk of well, one other because Hastings is like what you in here can't be.
Yeah, and it like
Yeah,
that's what I like about the scene because we've seen the sort of between Kate and Steve the rivalry, and
mm-hmm.
it did sort of make you go, "Oh, why are they being like this?" And it does sort of show that whatever happens, I think those two have got each other's backs,
Yeah,
and it's
mm-hmm.
really nice. That, like I said, she could blow her cover by visiting, but you can see in her face and the way she is, she's like, no, I have to come and see him. And that's what I mean
Yeah.
about this sort of family feel that the trio, I think, now have. And it's one of the things that the fan base really love, including myself, of how they all work and sort of play off each other.
Mm-hmm.
So this is when they now find another bit of new evidence or something, which is they get pictures of Nick's premises. And lo and behold, it's another balaclava man.
And you can kind of make a drinking about the series amount of time that Bella killed other man's actually has actually been said throughout the series. This is I mean, this is actually the odd iron about a kill so there's 3 years and the some and series but on it a ghost tide identify this um still a ghost tide identify this aspect because he's also out of it they
Well, yeah, because that's in the future, but now obviously they've got this picture. So, like, sort of they're starting to click now. That So first it was Michael, who was Balaclava Man, and
Yeah.
they're pretty sure it's not. Then it was Tim, but no, he's dead. So now it's Nick, and you can sort of see they're starting to piece together, even if they're not quite understanding yet. Is there
Yeah.
something bigger going on here?
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that this is now the third one we've seen, and that
Yeah.
they've attacked Steve.
Mm-hmm.
So it is sort of, but that does come in like you were sort of talking about later when Steve wakes up. But at this point, he's still, it's sort of, I don't think it's touch and go, but you can see it's really serious because when Kate visits him, Hastings does list off the injuries, and it is like pelvis, like every spinal, like, so you do get the sense that this is a really serious thing, and it's not going to be something that he can just recover with easily, just off that list Hastings gave. So now we sort of get another Nick and Roz scene because he's had the AC-12 interview, so he's even more, I think, annoyed, and then he's questioning her.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So he admits, because this is when Roz now clicks about the car, that it's been sighted.
Yeah.
So he does admit to being around Tim's flat to her.
Yeah, but yeah, but the reason is because yeah, the reason is because he's basically he followed because if I think she's having an affair.
Yeah, and this is when you sort of really feel sorry for him. Because it's like you can just picture him being like, "What's going on?" and following, and it's such an almost innocent reason that now he's been suspected for murder, that he was just following his wife because she'd been so secretive. So he admits to that.
Yeah.
And then this is a really interesting moment, I think, for Roz, and it sort of hints to what she could be doing and why her treatment is this way of him. And he sort of says to her, "No more lies. Were you with somebody?"
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we know that there's no cheating going on. She's not, it was all to do with the case she was there.
Yeah.
But she basically, the way she phrases it and responds to this is she basically does say to him, "Yeah, I was cheating on you."
Yeah.
They even, let's see if I wrote it down right. She even said, She says she was with somebody that night and that work couldn't know about it. So it does literally sound like she's admitting to what he fears.
Yeah.
And it does. Why do you think? What did you first think of that when you first watched it?
I can't think that she I tend to think that she knows that she knows that all the dominoes all the dominoes are starting to fall, so she's kind of happy. She's kind of happy to sort of um to sort of to sort of pull on with if if his paranoia because um she basically Elsa just to throw him off this and she basically tells him that she is having an affair
Yeah, I
just
mean,
to throw him off the scent.
yeah, you're sort of starting to. I think you're starting to get a sense here of almost the thought of cheating is the lesser evil than what she's actually
Yeah,
doing, and her sort of admitting to this so-called cheating.
yeah,
It like I said, it gets him off the scent and it protects him in a really weird fashion. And I think you're starting to get the sense of there is some protection going on. She's been horrible to him. There's no doubt in that. But this is a bit of an act. This is a bit of a way to protect him.
yeah.
Uh, Joker, it's on Netflix, but I don't know if your Netflix would have it because Netflix is different in different countries. So
Yeah.
if you've got Netflix, have a look because it is on the UK version. But obviously, as you're one of our international friends, I don't know. You'll have to have a look.
Yeah,
And on Amazon Prime, somebody said Amazon Prime, so that might be a bit easier if you've got
yeah.
that.
Said I who said that he saw it on Amazon Prime. So thanks for keeping the thanks for keeping the chat informed. Said I would be lost
Oh yes,
to about you.
yeah. Sudoku's always got very good at helping others. So
Mm-hmm.
now we have a scene which I do agree. Somebody was saying it's quite gets you in sort of in the gut, and this is Steve waking up because next Hastings gets a message. Oh, Steve's woken up, and he obviously wants to go straight to him to see
Yeah.
what he can say about his attacker.
Mm-hmm.
And like this is the huge. I swear we need a thing saying this is the moment when Charlotte gushes about Martin Compton again on the stream because he's acting. No, he's acting. I think he's because you get how he's just so still weak and vulnerable, and I think considering Steve is usually all cockiness and bluntness, you sort of see almost a completely different side to him because
Mm-hmm.
it's not like in series one when he was in the warehouse and you saw the
Yeah.
fear of when he thought the gang were going to attack him. Now you just
Yeah.
see, like I said, it's weak, it's vulnerability. I think with Steve because he's like very quiet. His voice is all the fire's gone out of it. And when they ask him to identify the attacker, like you said, when they show him the photo,
Yeah.
he can't do it. And you
Mm-hmm.
can just see he's really confused and he's really struggling and he's self-doubting a lot.
Yeah.
What did you think of that moment then? Because I thought that was a lot. That said a lot about Steve and sort of Martin how he acted.
Yeah. It shows off his angels and that, or angels and that. Basically, because there's not many, because there's not many good character that are out um around here at the minute, and he's probably one of the best things also of that out here at the minute, because there's not that many that can just so up until and so up until and give high all performances.
Yeah, and I think this is just sort of shows, like I said, the range, like you said, the range, and how Martin can show lots of different sides
Mhm.
to Steve. And like I said, it is, and I think you'll only this sort of thread of him being weak or being sort of not being his usual self.
Yeah,
If any of you, I know some of you folk watch Forward. I know Daniel's one episode ahead. It's
yeah.
this is the hint, and this is the start of it, and you just get more of it to come. But that I don't
Mhm.
want to spoil anything if you've not gone ahead. So that's all I'll say there. Um, and now we have Roz meeting her. Well, Hilton wants to be with her. She doesn't see Hilton as boyfriend, but she's getting increasingly obvious.
Oh my God! Well, he gets a bit more so easy, but so like progressive or him, or it's not like right away sort of thing, or like every time you him or Poppy gets a bit more sort of
Yeah, so
so
they're having because
easy.
it's like some sort of club, isn't it? That they're meeting at. So it's even
Yeah.
more sort of undertones, you could say.
Mhm.
And Roz is basically saying like AC-12 are still on my back. God, I know as Matthew said, that probably traumatise him. Um, yeah, so she's
Uh,
saying AC-12 is coming after her, and the only way to deal with this is to basically fully sort the Michael issue out and have him fully charged with everything. But
mhm.
and then obviously Tim's death not going public. She wants that to be kept internal.
Yep.
And then this is sort of something that's hinting to what's going to happen in the future. He sort of says, "Well, I can give you some of the history of AC-12 because
Yeah.
he has had dealings with them and the sort of
I
how he sees it, how they're underhanded with their tactics."
I suppose that's one way of putting it, my view, to be honest.
Yes, because that's what they keep focusing on. And I'm not gonna lie, there's a bit near the end that even though Rose has done plenty of things to make me not like her, I quite liked her at the end of the episode because of what she did in regards to that. Um, so now this is when we sort of get the whole forensic evidence comes back up, doesn't it?
Mhm.
Because AC-12 realise. Oh no, I've gone ahead. So this is when Roz is talking to the forensic desk guy, and she's sort of
Mhm.
saying, "Oh, surely you remember like misreading that, and you're the one who corrected the number." So she's trying to like cover her back in that way now.
I, uh, but he says he's 80 to 90% sure, so like um he seems actually he seems so like kill an honest bill oak to be if um to be I know like the arrest and the man is but like she basically keeps her asking him and he's supposed to be on his break in order to try and watch the answer that she wants out of him.
Yeah, and you sort of get this vibe of he's just there to do his job, and he just doesn't want to be messed with or sort of used in any way. So he's just like, I just do my job and sort of leave me alone. That's the
Yeah.
vibe. So now, obviously, we're now Roz goes back home. Oh no, because I don't think it's this. Yeah, I've not written it down. This is when she actually does go to somebody next about the arm, and I was
Yeah,
trying to work out what it was. Was it like a GP's or like a private clinic?
I think it might have been I think it might have been a clinic because, like, to be honest, why would they go to a GP with
Yeah, I
her?
was trying to work out what it
I
was,
don't know.
which we do get another look at it. So at least we've all been sort of saying this the last couple of weeks. She's finally gone to somebody to have a look at it. At least she's not just in her own bathroom spraying antiseptic, whatever it was. And
Yeah,
the woman does sort of say like, "Why didn't you come to me before with this?" And like, I'm gonna
yeah,
take some samples, which is sort of hinting at something we've all thought, which is that
yeah,
looks like it could maybe be infected at this point.
yeah,
So, so at least I didn't write it down, but I did remember, folks. So finally, she's gone to see somebody about the arm, but obviously
yeah.
she comes back home.
But it's kind of too little to um to as we'll see in the next episode.
Yeah, so obviously she's had. Oh, he definitely is in so many ways. Um, so she goes back home, and obviously
Mhm.
Nick's been waiting for her. He's been drinking as well. I think so. She sort of comes home and she does the usual, oh, I just want to go to bed or I just want to go in the bath, like sort of leave me alone routine. And Nick gets a little
Yeah.
brave. He sort of actually challenges her one of the
Oh,
few times he has.
oh gee.
I don't want to know what personal experience you've had, Matthew, with that comment.
Yeah, I think I think I think he's going into him about his own about his own experiences again in the chat there. Yeah.
Yeah, so she's back home and she's very much, like I said, in the usual, oh, work's been hard. I don't want to really do anything. And Nick, like I said, he's actually fed up, I think, enough for once. And he even gets quite close to her and is like, you need to treat me better. And I think that's the first time you've ever heard him say anything like that, which,
Yeah.
like I said, it's sort of a big moment, I think, for his character.
Mhm.
Which, what does she do in response, Daniel?
Um, she, she basically gives him a soul up, and it's actually a pretty aggressive soul up, but she slaps him, but she slaps him ice.
Yeah, and you can see it's a shock to him. And I think it's really well directed, actually.
Well, um, they've kind of get a point, but I don't think Oz was ever happy because she just seems like such a terrible, like such a terrible person, and when she's all and she's always got this sort of scowl, sort of scowl on her face. I think if she tried to smile, her face would probably
And it probably wouldn't know what
crack.
to do. Um, but you and a few people have just said it in the chat. You can see this is not a normal occurrence because he really, if he was a bit nervous before and a little bit not sure, you can really see this is almost coming out of nowhere for him. And like you said, it's not a little one she does, but I think but she says something really interesting when she's doing it, which is what she said, and she says, "Don't listen to what I say, look at what I do." So I think that's the script now telling you something a bit more that was sort of hinted at, and I almost think the slaps are a part of this. It's a shock, and I think that's what she's trying to do. She's trying to shake him up and shock him because he was getting hysterical, rightfully so. But for her, she can't have him like that. But the whole "don't listen to what I say, look at what I do" is basically her saying to him, "I might sound like I'm accusing you and being horrible, but my actions are all to protect you." And I think that's what
Yeah.
this scene is meant to do. It's meant to not make her actions good, but sort of say they're coming out of a need to protect, but she's having to be very harsh. And I almost think that's what the slaps are. She doesn't want to. She's not doing it out of wanting to be violent to him. But it's sort of this real shock, this sort of get yourself back together. And she doesn't know how else to do it in that moment. And like I said, and this is like what I love about this writing wise is that basically what we are seeing in a sense is abuse, but it's sort of showing how it's not. It can be very nuanced when it comes to television and how it's written, and it probably is a lot in real life, but it's showing a lot of different. It's not just doing the stereotypical way to do it.
Yeah, but you have to actually be sort of sensitive for that sort of subject
Oh yeah,
matter as well. Because if you think about it, you are going to have people that have suffered um, sort of sort of life running in, so you've kind of got to come at it from a sensitive angle when you've got to do it careful.
yeah, and I also think I think it's still rare nowadays on television. I'm talking about, but I think it's probably even rarer when this aired to see a woman do this to her male partner. It's sort of, and this is, and I think something she does later on. I almost think this is the writers trying to almost put stereotypes on their head and say women can be just as manipulative and just as, if it needs to be, physical when it comes to their partners. Because I think for so much of the stereotype is it's always blokes that do it to women. But to show it opposite, I think this is actually something the show it didn't need to do this, but I'm really appreciating that it is doing it. Is sort of what I'm trying to get at for this whole little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the irony is that she's probably had a hand in making him this way, and she's trying to also control him, like Daniel said. So, like I said, it's such a really clever way and nuanced way to write relationships and the sort of idea of control and abuse. and all those, like you said, really heavy topic matters.
Mm-hmm.
And it just sort of does it really, really, like I said, really well. I don't think of a good word for it, but we said this about obviously last series with the boys and the young boys and that sort of topic. So
Yeah.
this show has got a good track record at taking these topics and sort of not shying away from them, which is what I really like.
Although I did kind of think the Savo image from last series so overstated
Yeah, that's one of the
the
few
mark
times they
of it.
have
Mm-hmm.
up at this point, I would argue.
Mm-hmm.
So now we do AC12 find an anomaly, which we don't know what it is yet, with this forensic evidence that's been sort of brought up again and again. And then this is when I think this is probably one of the better scenes. There's a lot of good scenes, but I think this is one of the really tight ones. And this is Roz's second formal interview with AC12.
Yeah. So she um so yeah, and like this one's a bit more serious because if because they found another charge unusual even and he find another charge unusual when he find another way to charge it usual usual means get under the suspension or a red um or a red notice so the so as an of a use a bit more serious.
Yeah, and it obviously, and we've also got the whole of the background is Steve to this because it sort of informs, I think, Hastings still the sort of way he's acting. So we do see
Yeah.
from the beginning that Kate is watching,
Mm-hmm.
but she can message them, so she can feed information and sort of things she's learned from the inside, which comes up quite a few times. But when they start proper interviewing Roz.
Yeah.
So the first sort of thing of note is Hastings says you've charged this girl with the assault on Tim and the murder, but if it was
Yeah.
self-defense like you're claiming, then why didn't she have any defensive wounds on her? And that's sort of the first sort of thing he goes after.
Yeah.
And Hastings is sorry, and Ross is like, well, they could have healed by the time. And he's like, well, if it was that much of a forensic attack on her, she should have really quite significant things on her, and it
Yeah.
wouldn't have healed.
It's not going to be. It's not going to be a subtle escape if it is a more careless attack. It's going to be more. It's going to be more brutal and long and more fast. And basically, so I so I he kind of goes for the okay you huh
Yeah, and he also, I think it's a theme of no evidence for certain stuff she's pushing, because he does sort of say, have you got any evidence for this link with Michael and Tim? And she's like, well, we're still looking. So he's like, so you haven't got any evidence.
yeah
So that's another thing on top.
yeah and don't panic Matthew we will get to the hat in a minute.
Oh yes, and this is that's one of the best parts of the scene. But it's all what I like about this is it's a build up. You can really see that, like you said, Hastings is going in for the kill. Roz is sort of on the back foot a little bit at the beginning, and then she just does a switch, and we'll get to that because I think that's such a good moment. And
so,
the feminist rant as well.
yeah.
I think that's really good as well. So this now they bring up this new evidence, which is what they've got her in for, and that's that they found fibers in the blood in like the sample because they did their own independent sort of review of it, and he's sort of saying like, how on earth did the fibers of the suit get there? It doesn't track with what you're saying and what the account of this girl going in and ended up killing him.
Yeah, and yeah, and was for forensics unreal five us either, so it's not really adding up of her story.
Yeah, and it's not just that they don't share; they're designed not to, and he points that out. So he's just like, this just doesn't make sense. And of course, we know why it doesn't make sense because we know what happened. So then he sort of goes, right, I'm recommending you a suspension, not just from like trapdoor, just a full-on suspension because of the new evidence and all the suspicions they had with Michael. And this is when, and this is, oh, I forgot her name. I do know it, who plays Roz. Like I said, up until that point, she sort of was a little bit, you could see, was a little bit taken back. But it is, and I do agree, it's a bit Denton-esque. There's just a switch, isn't there? And she sort of just pulls herself back, and like he and Hastings is like, right, we'll wrap this up, and she's like, no, actually, you're gonna Sandy Newton. That's it. She's really brilliant in this moment. She actually goes, no, Hastings, sit down, and she goes to reach, and you just think, oh, she's gonna do a dance in here. She's got something underneath her sleeve. And this is when it all sort of comes together with what we saw in the bar a couple of scenes ago with Hilton.
So even at that moment, she kinda uses Hilton to get the necessary information to get his in basic kill.
Yeah, because that history that Hilton was linking at all has a theme, and that's, as Sadeko pointed it, it is a feminist rant. And I'm going to see, and I'll explain once I've gone through it, why I think that's actually, nowadays some people might decry, oh, it's all woke and all that. It's actually not, and it's really clever how it's done, because she points out that they've had three females, high-ranking officers that they've gone after, which is, of course, Denton herself, and I can't think of would have been the first one, but that's probably from one of the previous series as well.
Yeah, series. Yes, it is for from the to the
Oh yes.
function.
So this is
Because she gets herself to with the to know if you remember.
Yeah, so this is also what when I say to people line of duty, a lot of things do matter and they add up, even if it's later down the line. So it was referring to all that past, all the previous series, and she's doing it very much in a, they're all female, They're all high ranking.
Uh-huh.
And she also basically says in the Force there's a lesser percentage of females that get to that rank. And you're starting to see a bit. You should start to see what she's doing, but she's not finished yet. Then she does bring up what Hastings said to her, which is darling, because Hastings says, "I don't discriminate. I don't care about gender, race." And she thought, "Oh, so you don't care about that? But what did you call me on the crime scene?" So she's using this now, and then she also brings up the lack of promotions in AC-12 of females to high ranks.
And
so all of this is building up a not very good picture.
And before she before she asks he's about his get and she turns our attention to Jamie, who
Oh no, he says something in a minute.
oh yeah.
If we've got hints that he's not maybe the best officer before this for AC-12, he fully lands himself in it next, because you can see Hastings is getting more and more sort of like, why are you questioning this? And then she brings up, well, are you a part of the Masons, sir? And you just think, well, okay, why is she bringing up the Masons? And then, of course, she links it to, well, they don't allow females into that society, do they?
Okay, so she's so she's still having a rant, but she'll answer that and more that.
Yeah, so she's basically like sort of, so like you said, she's having very much a what some would say nowadays is a bit of a feminist social justice sort of rant, saying Hastings is sort of this old bloke who's sexist and doesn't allow women to go like higher in his own department, and he attacks them unfairly. But this is why I think this is actually really clever from the writers to do this, because we all know as an audience this is all to get them off her back. This is all her spinning this as her own shield. So do you really think she cares about women in his department?
No, it's a sort of cheap of second when she's using it as a and she's using it as a and she's using it as a shield.
Well, and especially as somebody else brought up, and I can't remember who it was, what did she do last episode to that girl?
Yeah, she sort she sort of talks down there and
Well, it's not just that she talks down; she arrests her for something she didn't do. So she can sit there and tell Hastings he's this and he's that and he's this horrible sexist bloke. But she can throw a woman underneath a bus when it suits her needs. So that's why, and obviously this might just be my interpretation of this, and the writers never meant this, but I think it's almost is saying sometimes if somebody's protesting too much about one thing, it's all just in their own self-interest, and I think that is what Roz is doing. And that's why I think it's, once again, it's them taking something and actually exploring it, and I think it is showing sort of that Roz, she's fully now in just looking out for herself mode. and she will say whatever
Yeah.
she has to. She will
Mm-hmm.
put whoever she needs to underneath the bus. So, and also her treatment of Nick, it's like he's almost part of that list of people she can just like roll over and do what she wants to. So
Yeah.
I think she's fully becoming now quite an interesting character. What did you think of her then after this scene?
I think it was I think it was an interesting sort of angle to get over of her character because because she's getting so written. I mean, I think that shows that she's willing to willing to willing to do anything to avoid to be in arrest. It's basically willing to keep her job.
Yeah, and Sudoku is a good point. Like she'd had that whole thing of that they're not one word, they're something else. I can't say on the stream, but then she didn't care about Hannah. So as like I said, I think it's really
Yeah,
showing that she has this this falsity of caring, but when it really affects her, she doesn't care. And I find that quite
yeah,
interesting as a character trait to put onto any character, let alone I think a woman character, because it gives them so much more layers. And I think in today's, without being too generalistic, we're sort of missing that in female characters nowadays.
yeah.
So now Jamie has his little moment. So what does he do?
Um, I keep it. I keep like I can remember how to alter this.
Oh,
Uh,
he blurts out about the forensic. Oh, well, he would do what you said.
yeah. Uh, so yeah, so she basically interprets that as Amy's is actually saying that that he's L and AC what they want to hear the
Yeah,
message.
sort of. He's saying, well, he's doing what you want. So she's like, oh, so
Mm-hmm.
the forensic, I can't remember the term, but basically the forensic department just do whatever they get told.
Mm-hmm.
So could they have been told by AC-12 to do something? So,
Yeah.
and Jamie's reaction is, oh, I didn't say that. You're just twisting my words, which is what she's doing. But
Yeah.
he's an idiot for blurting it out the way he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So once again, like, Jamie's fully showing she's not really ready yet, to put it nicely.
Mm-hmm.
Because then because then she works out. Well, she's already worked out at this point what Kate is, hasn't she? And now she reveals it
Yeah.
because she basically says, "Well, if AC-12 can tamper, and then her little minion Jodie took the photo of Kate
Mm-hmm.
at the forensic place."
Yeah.
And what did Kate actually? And of course, she was there not as her undercover, as herself. So she revealed she was Kate Fleming.
Yeah. So, yeah, so I think she say since have you get any history and take watching witness
Yeah. Well,
is
he sort of
and
said, "Oh, no, no,
yeah
no,"
and
and this is quite clever. She goes, "Well, have any of your officers got any history?" And he goes, "Well, my officers would never." So she goes, "Oh, so she's one of your officers then?" And this is
mhm,
when she's proper in control, isn't she? Almost at this point,
yeah
I would say, of the whole room and the conversation that's going on. And because she also does bring up Steve's past as well for planting evidence. So this is what I mean. This is what I love about the show. Like all the past threads now that you probably never would have thought would be relevant again are becoming relevant again, and they're being brought up to basically discredit AC-12.
And another poll for it comes back up in the next episode. This from the first series, so all the pieces are coming together for the jigsaw.
Yeah, and it's sort of because we said it's interesting because this series felt like this was them sort of starting again because so many of the bigger plots have resolved, and they have. It's like they've not unraveled them again. They're just. I think this is when I try to explain to people the show, it's like it's a web because plot points don't disappear and they do get resolved, but they impact when you like 2 or 3 series down the line. And that's such a hard thing to do in telly, to write that clever and that intricate and for it to feel natural. Because it doesn't feel unnatural for her to know all this, does it? Because we know it's coming from Hilton.
Yeah.
Because of his past with AC-12. So she's she's done what she's wanted to. She's discredited what she thinks fully Ted. So she's sort of like, right, unless you've got anything else, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
But she does have a little scene with Kate, doesn't she? Because Kate basically comes out of the room
Yeah.
and sort of challenges her. And then...
yeah. I'm in for a moment. I thought, Kate, this go only smack. I can't do it. Is it?
Kate was going to become Steve because Steve's out of action. But she does sort of have a personal dig, doesn't she, at the end of like, oh, how old are you and where are you in your career? Which is, I think, the hint, what we were saying of why Kate was having some of the barbs with Steve. Because I think it does come out of this. She's really feeling panicked almost herself about her stage in life and that she's still at a DS. So you're starting to see hints of why Kate really wanted the promotion. So I'm trying to get my notebook straight, people. So now we have sort of like 2 last sort of main scenes, which is the scene you quite liked with Hilton, and I quite liked with her and Hilton in the bar, because she's sort of there to say like, thank you for the evidence, it really worked.
Yeah. But again, he's trying to be so easy.
Yeah,
And he goes, all our friends, and you know the way it is, and you know the way that is and then it's
well, it's the fact that he says that, then puts the hand on the leg, and then he's like, oh, I've got a room here tonight if you want to come up. And then there's nothing lost what he's trying to do. But then she, in a moment that you even said to me on Messenger, were like, oh, wow. Like she sort of was like, I have a husband and I love him. And it's very clear she's sort of saying, I never was interested. And she has just used him.
Yeah.
She has fully just used him for what she needed to, and now she can discard him. And then sort of the next thing, which is the sort of, I would say, the sort of cliffhanger shock moment that now we tend to get at the end of these episodes, which really shocked you.
Oh yeah, PC, but Angela gives um hands over more uh, um hands over more information.
Well, we guess that's what it is because it's just an envelope, but we can guess, can't we?
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end, folks. So if you in the comments, if you can put your marks out of 10 and your little summaries and what you liked or disliked, and we can have a read of them. Well, so we sort of say our closing thoughts. And Daniel can go first this week because he usually says I do. So Daniel can go first this week.
Well, I'm gonna give that I think I'm gonna give that I think I'm actually gonna give us an 8 out of 10 because because it felt was real because it felt was real and it sets um and it's up and it sets up stuff for the last episodes, but also brings in older friends as well that haven't been discussed in a while.
Yeah. So what's your number?
And
8. Yeah.
an 8 out of 10.
Yeah, so I think 8's going to be the same for me because we did sort of say last week the beginning felt a little bit slow and that they were rehashing stuff, and you really don't have that issue this week. It pretty much gets from the go because of the fallout from Steve. I really like how you see that changes the rest of the characters, and I think it does sort of work this episode to have Steve a bit more background because it allows other characters, I think, to sort of come more to the forefront, like Nick, the husband. You really, that's my cat, folks. If you can hear a meow, it really allows the episode to explore him and Roz, and I think that was needed because he's obviously becoming a lot more important now to the plot. He can't just be the sort of the token background husband. There you go, folks. Can you see her? There we go. You can see the cat. So, and I think the actor's really good for Nick. Like I said before, Roz, she's sort of been getting muddier each episode, and her acts are becoming less and less. You can justify them, and she really does that this week. But like I said, you start to see a hint of it's all for protection of Nick. It's to protect the family, and she's sort of really willing to become a villain almost to do that. But I agree with you. The threads now, they're starting to come together a bit more, and we are getting to the last 2 episodes, so it is sort of hitting a bit of speed like it needed to. Yes, well, I'll give this an 8 because I really like the character work. I like some brilliant scenes, some really nice interactions, and some really good ideas. She probably was, because she was. I tell you, don't know if you could tell, folks. She was hanging around before, and she wasn't happy because I didn't let her on the knee, because she would just take over most of the screen then. So she was probably doing that to sort of show off and to have a go at me, because I wasn't at the stroking good enough.
Yeah.
So what I think some of the folks have given theirs, if I look back up, 8 out of 10 from Chris Persia. So agree with us. Matthew, another 8 out of 10. And he's put nice to see the pace picking up. And lots of comments about my cat. Seven out of 10. No, 6. I can't read. 6 out of 10 from Sudoku. And
Yeah.
Wendyology, 8 out of 10.
I don't really think that I was enjoying this.
I think there's some leaps of logic earlier on,
Mhm.
which I can see why he wouldn't be
Yeah.
getting on with as much.
Mhm.
So, but this is like you last series. Took you a while to get into last series.
Yeah.
We don't, Mr. Hyde. I love that you don't watch, but you're in the chat. Thank you very much. We always appreciate when you
Yeah.
can just tell you we're wrong.
Yeah. And yeah, and I would just like to say to you, YouTube, to get your act together, because I get people say to me all the time, all the time. I didn't get the notification, so so YouTube, these are all back at work now, so uh, so they are sure with X.
And it's come on, it's little old us. Like when you can tell people we're streaming about Line of Duty. Like surely that's not like part of the naughty sort of things that you don't like us talking about.
Uh, uh, um, so kill. So kill. Kill. Before we chat backstage. Sharon, whose channel are you on? As because I know that because I know that type for all you're kinda on a break at the moment, so
Yeah, so we're our
yeah.
Type 40 live. We're doing Thursday nights. We're taking a little breather, a little break at the moment. But I did do this week, just gone on Tuesday. Me and Dan, we did a live stream when we talked about Christopher Eccleston and sort of his comments, and then some of the other bits and bobs of Doctor Who news that are floating around. So I
Yeah.
did that this week, and then you'll catch me on the TARDIS Zone most weekends when we do, because Noel Godloving was a bit tired and last week, so we should hopefully be doing the chase and Nightmare in Silver. Oh, and then sorry, Type 40, because the Telly Club is still going, so you should be able to hear the lovely Wendy, who's in the chat, and me, and Ian and Dan, and whoever else. On Tuesday coming up, we should be doing our In the Forest of the Night review and live stream.
Yeah, but that's a totally different stream altogether. So oh,
Oh,
if you
Daniel has thoughts, folks, but he's being nice and not saying them on stream.
yeah, well, yeah, yeah, well, spot, yeah, well, spot on still on my to to the account was relative was relative. You can, but inside I was uh, um inside there was raging, you know me. Yeah, like see, to be honest, it's with you just before. Well, it's before I get of my shout outs. Right, partly the problem is because like he was a doctor that brought us into the show, right? So it's kind of like a kick to the it's kind of like a kick to the balls every time he actually opens his mouth and says something completely stupid. That's why he's up and own.
Well, no. How do you phrase it? Sometimes he's on the naughty step. Sometimes he's not.
Um, um, he's on the naughty step, and he's when he's as I was concerned, and venom off but I think it might have to be super good onto the naughty step at this. That's because he won't shut up.
That's all right. Just Chris. Just for Daniel's own sanity at this point. Just don't talk about Doctor Who for a little bit.
So for you, streams coming up, obviously, I'll obviously, I'll take a couple of weeks break, and we'll come back and we'll and I'll come back. I can we'll do is asked episodes he here shall it's history in with FM and oh it's talking about who from a female and perspective as well. That'll come after that'll come after our after with our pops it is four, but as well we've got as well I do plan on our so in stream of FM FM Oneg and Kish ons up for our coming back on here and on here and having a discussion so Paul and take on so Paul and take on so like share so like sharing and
Like, share, and subscribe, and you might see more beauty.
like, share, and subscribe, and Charles, it's got the channel ask on Charles, it's got the channel Scott. Yeah, so anything for or subscribe.
Beauty, you have a use. You're happy. You actually have a use for once in your life. She's on my new phone, so that's why you just.
And also on the on the bell so that you are notified for or any upcoming content on the channel. Take your eyes and have a good weekend. And here's the channel trail.
See you guys soon.